What if everything you see, everything you touch, and everything you call real is not what it appears to be? Imagine sitting in a room, looking around at the furniture, the walls, perhaps a window revealing sunshine or starlight. Now imagine that every object, every shape, every distance is just an elaborate illusion, a virtual stage set up for your consciousness to explore. Does that sound like science fiction or ancient mysticism? In truth, it may be both. Modern scientific discoveries in quantum physics, along with esoteric teachings spanning millennia, point to a startling conclusion. Reality could be more like a virtual simulation than a fixed, external entity. Our own consciousness may play a pivotal role in rendering the world we perceive. In this video, we will embark on a mind-bending journey to see how space and time might be illusions, how our beliefs can shape our personal reality, and how the outer world might mirror our inner states of being. We'll weave these themes together to show that you have more power over your life than you might ever have imagined, and that the line between esoteric wisdom and scientific discovery is thinner than you think. By the end of this exploration, you may find yourself questioning, what is real? How do I interact with something that might be an illusion? And most importantly, what can I do right now to transform my experience of life? Let's step beyond the veil and venture into the frontier where science meets mysticism, where we discover the possibility that nothing we see is as solid or immutable as it seems. Let's begin by tackling one of the most radical claims, that space and time, along with every physical object we experience, might be mere visualization tools, an interface or headset that consciousness uses to navigate something deeper. In everyday life, we believe that the sun, the moon, our bodies, and everything we see in space and time exist independently. Yet, there's a growing perspective that these are more like icons on a desktop, rendered only when necessary. Imagine you're playing a cutting-edge virtual reality game. When you look straight ahead, the program renders a car, a building, or a road. When you turn your head, the scenery behind you disappears from your immediate view, because the system only needs to display what you're looking at. Now apply that analogy to real life. Some argue that the objects you see literally pop into existence when observed and dissolve back into something undefined, like a wave of probabilities, when you look away. Why might this be true? Consider the renowned double-slit experiment in quantum physics. When particles like electrons or photons aren't observed, they behave like waves, creating an interference pattern. The moment scientists measure or observe which slit the particle goes through, the interference pattern collapses, and they behave like particles. This experiment implies that observation directly influences the state of what we call matter, hinting that consciousness isn't a passive bystander, but an active participant in shaping the form reality takes. Further, there's an interpretation in modern theoretical physics suggesting that space-time may be emergent rather than fundamental. In other words, space and time might arise out of more basic quantum processes. If that's the case, it's plausible that our usual sense of space as a vast container and time as a relentless flow might be illusions that help us operate in a realm of deeper complexity. Rather than being stuck in the constraints of physical space and linear time, we could be using them the way a VR gamer uses a digital landscape to navigate, explore, and interact with elements of a broader reality. Take a moment to reflect on your body. If you look in the mirror, you see your skin, your hair, your eyes. If someone were to open your skull, they would find a brain full of neurons and blood vessels, but never your hopes, dreams, or awareness. The intangible aspects of your experience, your love of music, your fear of the unknown, your sense of identity, are nowhere to be seen in the brain's physical tissue. Some esoteric viewpoints argue that consciousness is primary and that the body, including the brain, is just a rendering, a convenient icon that lets consciousness interact with a realm of possibilities. This does not mean we should ignore health or deny the body's reality in a practical sense. It suggests that what we call physical is only a slice of something much larger and more fluid. As with a VR game, the steering wheel is there when you look at it. Turn away, and the system ceases to render it. Could our physical objects, from laptops to stars, operate in a similar principle of being there only when observed? If so, reality is far less rigid than we often assume. These ideas aren't brand new. Ancient traditions like Hinduism speak of Maya, describing the world of appearances as an illusion masking a more profound unity. Buddhism teaches that clinging to the idea of a permanent, separate self and an unyielding external world causes suffering. Even in Western philosophy, Plato's allegory of the cave likened human perception to prisoners watching shadows on a wall, mistaking those shadows for the real things casting them. The novelty in our modern age is that scientific methods, especially in quantum physics, neuroscience, and theoretical cosmology, are beginning to produce findings that align with these older teachings. We are not concluding definitively that the world is an illusion, but we are seeing enough cracks in the old materialist paradigm to seriously reconsider how reality might be structured. We've touched on the macro-level perspective, pondering how the universe might be a grand virtual interface. Let's bring it closer to home. If reality is even partly shaped by observation or consciousness, what does that mean for the everyday experiences we call life? Many people feel stuck, trapped by a job they dislike, hampered by emotional states they can't escape, or weighed down by limiting beliefs. I can't do this. I'll never be good enough. The concept that consciousness might be an active participant in forming reality suggests we have more freedom than we realize. Even if it doesn't override every circumstance overnight, it opens the door to profound shifts in how we perceive and thus experience our world. Imagine waking up convinced you'll have a terrible day. You feel tired, maybe anxious, and you interpret every small mishap, spilling coffee, traffic delays, as evidence that your day is cursed. Meanwhile, you disregard or fail to notice any positive or neutral events. This mental filter, or confirmation bias, cements the belief that your day is miserable. Psychologists have long studied how beliefs shape experiences. For instance, the placebo effect demonstrates that when people believe they're receiving real medication, their bodies often respond as if that medication were active, even if it's a sugar pill. Conversely, the nocebo effect shows how negative expectations can worsen symptoms. These phenomena illustrate that belief has tangible, physical consequences, suggesting that our mental states do far more than just color our attitudes. They can alter outcomes. If we apply this principle to the broader perspective of reality as a fluid construct, it means we might literally be forming the shape of our day, our emotional landscape, and even certain external circumstances by how we choose to perceive and believe. A cloud of negativity can feel inescapable, but recognizing it as partly self-chosen is a game changer. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you might begin asking, "How am I contributing to this scenario, and how can I shift my contribution?" One approach is to consistently remind yourself, "I am choosing my experience." This doesn't mean blaming yourself for everything that goes wrong or for tragic events outside your control. Rather, it highlights that you always have a choice about how you interpret, label, and react to circumstances. Acknowledge the feeling. If you're upset, be honest about it. Don't repress it. Own your role. Say to yourself, "I notice I'm interpreting this event in a way that causes me stress or anger. I'm choosing to interpret it this way." Consider alternatives. Ask, could there be another perspective? Is there something else I can focus on that might bring relief or a sense of possibility? By doing so, you shift from victim consciousness, "It's all happening to me," to creator consciousness, "I'm shaping my reality through perception and choice." Even if the external world doesn't instantly change, your internal state often does. And that's where real empowerment begins. Now we enter the heart of a truly transformative idea, the mirror principle. According to this principle, the outer world acts like a mirror for your inner state. If you frown in front of a mirror, you see a frown. If you want to smile in that reflection, you don't try to push the mirror around or manipulate the glass. You simply change your own facial expression, and the reflection follows. Consider how we often complain about external events. This situation is making me angry. These people disrespect me. Or, I'm always broke because of the economy. The mirror principle suggests flipping that perspective. Where in me might anger be stirring? Or what beliefs am I holding that align with feeling disrespected or financially limited? Then you shift those internal beliefs or emotions. Over time, the outer reflection often shifts too. In neuroscience, there's ample evidence that our brains are malleable, thanks to neuroplasticity. Repeated thought patterns and emotional states strengthen neural pathways. If for years you've been telling yourself, I can never succeed, you create a deep groove in your neural circuitry that predisposes you to negativity and hopelessness. But the reverse is also true. By intentionally introducing new thoughts, like I can find ways to improve, and coupling them with supportive emotional states, excitement, calm confidence, curiosity, you carve out new grooves. Over time, these become your new default. By resculpting your internal landscape, the mirror principle suggests that you'll see tangible changes in your external environment. Old conflicts might fade, new resources might appear, and opportunities you once dismissed as impossible could become viable. This doesn't require forcing external events so much as aligning your mind and emotions with the outcomes you desire. The outer world, in turn, plays catch-up, reflecting the revised you. These concepts can provoke numerous questions. Let's address a few. Does this mean I create everything, including tragedies? Most interpretations suggest we partake in a co-creative process with a broader consciousness or collective. You're not personally at fault for every difficulty in the world. However, focusing on your internal state can dramatically shift how you experience and respond to challenges, thus altering the trajectory of your life. What if my life is full of intense hardships? Isn't that real? Hardships are real to the extent that we feel them. This framework doesn't deny suffering. Instead, it contends that even in suffering, there's an internal dimension, your interpretation, your sense of self, your agency, that remains flexible. Could this be dangerous, promoting blame the victim thinking? Not if approached with wisdom. Recognizing your role in shaping perceptions and experiences is empowering, not blaming. It's about liberation from the sense of utter helplessness, not moral condemnation for one's circumstances. Real compassion includes acknowledging systemic and collective factors, while also exploring the latitude we each have to shape our personal reality. Is there scientific proof that my thoughts create reality? Direct thought creates matter. Proof remains debatable. However, quantum theory suggests observation plays a role in determining outcomes, and psychology has shown how beliefs strongly influence perception, emotional well-being, and behavioral results. These findings are sufficiently suggestive to entertain the possibility that consciousness wields more influence over reality than a strictly materialist worldview would admit. Let's ground these ideas with a few everyday examples, illustrating how illusions, choice, and the mirror principle can manifest in ordinary life. The never enough time mindset. Scenario: you constantly feel there aren't enough hours in the day. You're overwhelmed, juggling responsibilities, concluding, I'm just too busy. Mindset shift. Recognize that you're choosing this narrative. Switch to, I can allocate my time in new ways. Or, I always find time for what truly matters. Possible outcome: you might start noticing small windows of opportunity, like reorganizing your morning routine or delegating tasks you used to hoard. Instead of reinforcing, I have no time, you create mental space to plan and prioritize. Over weeks or months, your experience of time might shift dramatically. Relationship conflicts. Scenario: you argue with a particular friend or family member over and over about the same issue. Maybe they're too critical or never there for you. Mirror principle. Ask, what belief or fear do I hold that resonates with feeling criticized or unsupported? Perhaps you realize you carry an unresolved fear of inadequacy. Inner work. You start affirming, I'm worthy of respect, and you practice calmly setting boundaries or expressing your needs without aggression. A possible outcome: either the external relationship improves because you change your approach, or you draw new connections into your life that mirror your growing sense of self-worth. In some cases, you might find that toxic relationships naturally fade out when you no longer match them internally. Creativity and goals. Scenario: you dream of writing a novel or starting a business, yet you constantly say, "I'm not talented enough," or "it's impossible to succeed." A choice of perception. Realize that these are beliefs you're choosing. So test a new belief. "It's possible to improve steadily," or "I can learn from every attempt." Practical step. Dedicate a small, consistent block of time each day to writing or planning. Possible outcome. Over time, you build skill and confidence, noticing how your environment magically offers resources and connections that support your project. Rather than illusions of fixed limitations, you see expansions of possibility. In each example, the pivot from passive victim to active participant can drastically alter your emotional well-being and eventually your material conditions. While life is complex, and not every situation changes overnight, the consistent internal realignment often yields surprising external shifts. Let's step back and see how all these puzzle pieces fit together. Quantum mechanics suggests that particles exist in superpositions until observed, which parallels the idea that nothing is rendered until we look at it. Neuroscience shows that beliefs and emotions shape neural pathways and perceptions, supporting the idea that we choose our experience to a significant degree. Esoteric traditions from various cultures have long claimed that the world is a projection of mind or spirit, with space and time as illusions. Daily experience indicates that shifting our inner standpoint, taking responsibility for our attitudes, practicing emotional mastery, can transform our lives. Whether we say space-time is an illusion or consciousness collapses reality, the practical outcome is the same. We have the potential to re-envision how we move through life. When we see ourselves as participants in the weaving of reality, rather than passive objects in a mechanical world, we awaken to the power of choice, mindset, and intention. It's absolutely fine to be skeptical. In fact, healthy skepticism can keep these ideas grounded. We can embrace a curious posture, testing these principles in our own experience. If shifting your emotional state or focusing on gratitude triggers better outcomes, that's compelling evidence for you personally. You needn't prove it in a physics lab to reap the benefits. We all live in the laboratory of our daily life, where results speak for themselves. We began by asking if everything we see might be an illusion, a VR-like experience conjured by consciousness. Along the way, we encountered the notion that we can choose our experience of reality, that space-time could be emergent rather than fundamental, and that our outer world reflects our inner states, as surely as a mirror shows our facial expressions. Here's the grand takeaway: you are not powerless. Whether you interpret these ideas through the lens of quantum physics, spirituality, psychology, or a blend of all three, they converge on an empowering theme. There is far more plasticity in reality than we often assume. By becoming aware of your beliefs and emotional patterns, you shift from feeling trapped by external circumstances to recognizing your role as a creator or co-creator of your life's unfolding story. Give yourself 1 week to test any aspect of this discussion. For instance, practice noticing and labeling your daily beliefs. When you find yourself saying, "This always happens to me," reframe it to, "I notice I'm choosing to see this pattern. I can choose a new lens." Observe the ripple effects, however small they may initially seem. When you do this consistently, the mirror principle suggests you'll start to perceive subtle, and sometimes dramatic, changes in how others respond to you, how opportunities present themselves, and even in your overall sense of peace or fulfillment. Try not to let cynicism close the door on possibility. If anything, approach these ideas as hypotheses. The worst-case scenario is that you discover you feel more in control, more open to solutions, and less weighed down by automatic negative thinking. The best case? You might realize that a large portion of what you once believed impossible or immutable is actually within reach. Imagine looking in the mirror one morning, and instead of seeing the same old face of worry or defeat, You see someone who recognizes the illusions, who understands that each day is an invitation to shape your life from the inside out. If space-time is truly a flexible construct, and consciousness is the author behind the scenes, then you have a front-row seat to one of the greatest adventures imaginable, the conscious exploration and creation of your own reality. Thank you for joining this journey through the intersection of science and esoteric insight. If you found value here, consider sharing this exploration and subscribing for more deep dives into the nature of consciousness and the cosmos. Most importantly, take these ideas and apply them. Use them as a lens to see if the illusions of space, time, and limitation begin to dissolve, revealing the boundless potential you carry within. After all, if reality is not what it seems, the only question left is, what will you make of it?